Hi everyone, Becky here, FiveTwoBaker. This week I'll be sharing with you a tutorial for how to make the sweet pea flower out of sugar, but really you can make it out of any clay that you make your flowers with. The sweet pea flower, in my opinion, is very easy to make and has such a big impact because it has so much length. It can really add a lot of movement to your pieces, whether it be just the floral arrangement or on cakes. So I really hope that you guys enjoy this tutorial. Let's get started. To start off, there's a few things we're going to need, one of them being floral wire. I recommend using a 24 or a 26 gauge. I'm using the 26 gauge here, and they're cut to about 7 inches or so in length. You'll need your flower paste in whatever color you like, some sort of a ball tool, a brush with some cornstarch, a flower mold, so I'll be using a rose petal mold, some cutters, and some floral tape. You'll need your edible glue, and I'll leave a link to a quick tutorial on how to make edible glue, a foam pad, and a rolling pin. Next, we're going to grab a little chunk of flower paste about the size of a jelly bean, and we'll roll it up to look like a jelly bean. Then using my 26 gauge floral wire, I'll create a hook on the end, dip it in some edible glue, and then put it in about halfway into my little chunk of flower paste. And now I'll start forming the center of my flower with my fingers. I want to keep it small, so any excess I just pinch off with my fingers, and I'm going to pinch one side of this little jelly bean so it looks more like an empanada now. I want this to be no bigger than the center part of my cutters. So these are all small. This will also serve as the center of every flower that we make on this stem, or just the bud. So as many flowers as you want, you need to have that many of these. Once you have it, go ahead and set it off to dry, and we can start working on the next petals. For the next petals, nothing is going to be wired, so go ahead and make your flower paste thin as you're comfortable with, and let's stamp some out. These that have wings will be the second petal we add. The wider ones that are more circular will be the third petal that we add. I'll go ahead and take off any excess flower paste, add any cornstarch that's needed because my flowers are a little softer right now. And then I'm ready to vein them. To vein them, I want a soft, subtle vein because it's not harsh on this flower. So I'm just going to use one of my rose veiners. I don't have anything specific for the sweet pea. I'll press it, and then because I didn't use a rolling ball tool ahead of time to thin the edges, I'm just going to thin it right on the veiner. It's already pretty thin because the entire petal is thin, but just to really finish it off so there's no blunt edges. Now again, because my flower paste is so soft right now, I'm going to set it off to dry for a few minutes so it can be easier to handle. And all the petals, second petals and third petals, I'll do the same too. Press them in the veiner, thin off the edges just a little bit, and set them off to dry for just a few minutes, just so they're easier to handle. Now that they're easier to handle, I'm going to go ahead and grab those winged petals, these second petals, and I'm going to roll them in a bit so they look like they're curling towards the center. You can do it in or out, or just leave it open. It's entirely preference based. But I like them looking like this. Once I have them curled, I'll go ahead and add some glue to the center, and then I'm going to add that first part that we made, that little empanada looking part, and I'm going to attach it to the wings. Go ahead and pinch that little part that sticks out at the bottom to the wire so it's nice and secure, and then either squeeze the flower paste together or cut off any excess. This here is the second phase of our flower. We can stop here if we like, or we can keep going. Now if we want a full bloom, we'll be adding this third petal. This third petal is when it's fully opened up, so I like to curl them out a bit instead of in, but again, this is entirely based on preference. You can use a tool or you could just use your fingers. I find toothpicks make curling a little bit easier. I just didn't have any on hand. And once I'm happy with it, I'll again, the bottom half of the center, glue, attach it to my flower that has the 2 petals on there, and then adjust everything to however I want it to look. I typically like this third petal to be a little bit more open, so I'm gonna leave it drying, hanging out on the edge of my board, just so that it stays open and has time to set up more that way. Now once all my petals are set up, I'm going to work on the little calyx. It's going to be a very easy calyx, so I'm just taking some green flower paste, making it into a cone. I'll cut out 4 little leafy petals, and using my Dresden tool, I'm going to flatten them out against my finger a bit. And once they're all flat, then I'll use my fingers to pinch the edges a bit to make it a little more pointed and a little less boxy on the ends. Now I'm only making 4 because it's such a tiny flower, and so I'm not going for exact here. I'm just going for the look of a calyx, but you can be as exact as you like. I'll go ahead and add some glue to the base of my flower, thread the wire through the calyx, and then press the calyx against my flower, making sure it's nice and adhered. And once it is, I'll go ahead and taper the calyx off towards the bottom, pinching off any excess, and set that to dry. Now while all of my calyx are drying up, I'm going to take some floral tape, stretch it to activate the stickiness, and I'm just going to roll it up as tight as I possibly can. This isn't the most fun process, but we're going to make the little tendrils, the little curls that the sweet pea flowers have, and I think they're just absolutely darling. So I think it's worth the time to go ahead and just twist up a bunch of these ahead of time while your flowers are drying and set them off for future use. Once you have an entire long tendril, go ahead and grab something round like a pen or any other tool, and go ahead and wrap it around it to form that curl. The stickiness of the tape is going to help adhere it to your tool so it'll stay and keep that shape. Next, because I used white floral wire on my flowers, I need to cover up that floral wire. So using my floral tape, holding it at an angle, I'm going to wrap my wire in green tape, and I'm just going to go about halfway down because these flowers aren't going to be pressed right against the stem. They're going to be sticking out a bit, so I don't want it to look white. I want everything to be green. Once I've covered all of my white wire in green tape, it's now time to attach them to the center stem. So for this, I'll just grab my flower, I'll grab my stem, see where I want to place it, and I'll start by attaching the floral tape to my flower, to my wire, and then taking that and adding the center wire to it. I want to make sure that the center wire is completely covered by the tape so I don't have any blunt edges. But here you can see I did have a blunt edge. I didn't do a very good job of covering it, so I'm just going to go over it with tape again. It's not a big deal. We can always fix these. Once I've gone down a bit, now it's all preference based. We're going to have creative freedom to add the little curls, the tendrils, wherever we like. We'll add the flowers however close or far apart we like. And then I'll also be adding some leaves, which I didn't cover in this video because they're just very basic free-form leaves that I add. I just make them long and thin, And everything that I'm adding from this point on is all just based on how I want it to look. The only thing that I keep in mind is that my newest buds, my smallest ones, are at the top, and my older flowers, the ones that have the 3 petals, will be further down the stem, so closer to the bottom of my flower. Once you have everything attached, it's just a matter of bending the wire to have it look however you like. You can always add some color dust to this to make everything pop a bit more, look a little more realistic, but I was really enjoying these soft colors, so I left it as is. And that's it, guys. We're all done. You make as many stems as you'd like. Again, this flower is absolutely beautiful on its own, but I really love it in larger arrangements because it adds so much height, and I can move them around to make really interesting movements and really catch the eye. As always, if you have any questions, please drop them down in the comments below and I'll make sure to get back to you. If not, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to drop me a like and hit subscribe if you haven't already. I super appreciate it. And I will see you guys for the next tutorial.